My name is Michael. I'm 33 years old, and until 24 hours ago, I was engaged to Lydia. 6 years. 6 years built on shared laughter at summer cookouts, lazy Sunday mornings tangled in sheets, whispered dreams under city lights. She had captivated me instantly. That brilliant, effortless smile, a wit that could disarm a room, and a spark between us that felt like finding a missing piece of my own soul. Proposing a year ago felt as natural as breathing. It was the right time, the right person, or so I had believed with every fiber of my being. But marrying Lydia, I learned painfully late, wasn't just about binding my life to hers. It was an implicit, overwhelming merger with the force of nature that was her family. Jack and Donna were more than loud. They were a gravitational pull, demanding the spotlight with an intensity that bordered on pathological. Their opinions weren't just voiced, they were decreased, delivered with the certainty of royalty surveying peasants. Initially, I mistook their brashness for harmless eccentricity, a larger-than-life personality quirk. Time, however, is a merciless revealer. I began to see the deep veins of entitlement that ran through everything they touched, coloring their interactions, their expectations, and, insidiously, their view of me. My background, solidly working class, from a small town where people valued hard work over inherited status, became a constant, subtle point of condescension. Charming, Donna would murmur about my hometown, her tone implying anything but. Jack would clap me on the shoulder a little too hard, declaring how Lydia was slumming it for love, his laugh failing to mask the sting. To understand the rupture that occurred at that rehearsal dinner, you need to understand the bedrock it shattered. My mother, Patricia, to call her the best person I've ever known feels insufficient, a pale sketch of the vibrant, compassionate force she was. Her passing 2 years ago, after a grueling 3-year battle with cancer that she faced with unimaginable grace, left a void in my world that still echoes. Watching her endure the relentless assault of illness, while still prioritizing others, checking in on neighbors, sending encouraging notes, organizing meal trains for families in worse straits, was a masterclass in selflessness. She didn't just teach me kindness, she embodied it. She didn't just preach generosity, she lived it, often quietly, ensuring the recipient never felt the crushing weight of debt or pity. She was my anchor, my confidant, my fiercest advocate, but her reach extended far beyond our small family unit. She possessed a rare gift, the ability to step into the chaos of someone else's life, identify the critical need, and fulfill it without fanfare, without judgment, leaving only relief and a quiet sense of being seen. She fixed problems, not for accolades, but because it was the right thing to do. This included Lydia's family. Jack and Donna owed Patricia a debt they could never truly repay, yet their current narrative painted her as something entirely different. The dissonance was jarring, a constant low-grade hum of betrayal beneath the surface of wedding planning. The first introduction between Lydia and my mother went smoothly enough. Polite smiles, pleasant conversation over coffee. Mum later confided she liked Lydia's energy, her apparent confidence. Lydia seemed respectful, engaged, but as our relationship deepened, fissures appeared. Not dramatic confrontations, but subtle, unsettling comments from Lydia. "Your mum is just so involved, isn't she?" She'd remark after Mum offered to help organize moving boxes when we got our first apartment together. Or, "She's always so eager, bless her heart," when Mum sent over homemade soup during a minor flu Lydia had. The phrasing always carried a faint edge, a hint of judgment disguised as observation. It grated, but I dismissed it as Lydia adjusting, perhaps feeling territorial, or simply misinterpreting Mom's genuine desire to help as interference. What Lydia, and crucially her parents, conveniently glossed over was the sheer magnitude of what Patricia had done for them. Years ago, when their beloved, failing restaurant, the Gilded Fork, teetered on the brink of collapse, drowning in debt and mismanagement, it was my mother who stepped into the breach. Banks laughed at Jack's bluster and Donna's pleas. Suppliers demanded cash up front. The dream Jack had leveraged everything on was evaporating. Mum, who ran a tight financial ship, managing the accounts for several small local businesses, saw not just the failing enterprise, but the terrified people beneath the bravado. Against cautious advice, including my father's quiet reservations, she co-signed a substantial loan for them. She saw potential where others saw only risk, but she didn't stop there. recognizing that throwing money at the problem wasn't enough. She spent countless evenings at their kitchen table, buried in their chaotic books. She streamlined their ordering, renegotiated supplier contracts, implemented a basic but effective inventory system, and helped them develop a realistic repayment and profitability plan. She essentially gave them the business acumen they lacked, and it worked. The Gilded Fork didn't just survive, it began to thrive again, becoming the cornerstone of their comfortable lifestyle. The ledger didn't stop there. When the restaurant's massive industrial oven, the literal engine of their kitchen, gave a terminal groan, the cost of replacement was prohibitive. Profits were still being funneled into debt repayment. Facing potentially catastrophic downtime, they were paralyzed. Mom, without hesitation, wrote a check for the full amount. "Consider it an investment in your future," she'd said, waving away their stammered, half-hearted promises of repayment. This was money that, years later, could have eased the burden of her own mounting medical bills. But she never asked, never hinted. It was simply done. Then there was Ryan, Lydia's older brother. Bright, but perpetually adrift. He hit a wall his final semester of college. Tuition fees loomed, insurmountable. He was ready to drop out, defeated. Mum intervened. She covered the semester's tuition. "Education," she told him, her voice firm but kind, "is the one thing no one can ever take from you. Finish it." He did. He walked that stage, diploma in hand, largely because of Patricia's quiet intervention. Her contributions weren't merely financial, it was her time. Hours spent helping Donna untangle bookkeeping messes, weekends spent babysitting Ryan's two young children so he could focus on studying for crucial exams, advice offered over countless cups of tea, navigating family squabbles or business hiccups. She was a steady, reliable presence in their often chaotic orbit, and the gratitude was conspicuous by its absence. Oh, there were the obligatory thanks. Pat S. mumbled over shoulders, quickly lost in the next conversation, but genuine, heartfelt acknowledgement, a sincere expression of the profound impact she'd had on saving their business, their son's future, their very stability. Never, not once, Mom never sought it. She found fulfillment in the act of helping itself, but the lack of it, especially in light of what was to come, now feels like a profound, tailing character flaw in Jack, Donna, and, by silent complicity, Lydia. When Mum died, the world didn't just dim, it fractured. The grief was a physical weight, a constant ache in my chest, a hollow echo in our now too quiet family home. Lydia was present in the immediate aftermath. She attended the funeral, brought casseroles, sat with me during the rawest first weeks. At the time, I mistook her physical presence for deep support. Looking back through the clarifying lens of hindsight, I see the limitations. Her support often felt transactional, bordering on impatient. Phrases like, "You need to move on, Michael, or your mum wouldn't want you to be sad forever," became common refrains. While technically true, Mum would undoubtedly want me to find joy again. The delivery lacked empathy. It felt less like comfort and more like an instruction manual for grief she expected me to follow promptly. It felt dismissive of the vast, complicated landscape of loss I was navigating. Her presence was often passive. She was there, but not truly with me in the depths of my sorrow. She didn't know how to handle the messy, enduring reality of my grief, so she tried to tidy it up, box it away before its time. As wedding planning ramped up in the year following Mum's death, the dissonance surrounding her memory became impossible to ignore. It was like a faint, discordant note, subtly woven into the wedding march. Any time I tried to weave Mum into the fabric of our ceremony, Lydia would subtly, but firmly, shut it down. The most poignant example, I envisioned a simple, heartfelt moment during our vows, just 30 seconds, lighting a single candle beside a framed photo of Mom, a silent acknowledgement of her presence in spirit, her role in shaping the man standing before Lydia. When I proposed it, Lydia's reaction was immediate and cool. "Isn't that kind of ... sad, Michael?" she asked, wrinkling her nose slightly. "A wedding is supposed to be a happy occasion. Do we really want to bring the mood down with something so ... morbid?" Morbid. The word felt like a slap, reducing the honoring of my mother's memory to a buzzkill. I argued, gently, that it was about inclusion, about love, transcending death. But she remained unmoved, citing the flow and the tone of the day. I conceded, not wanting to ignite conflict so close to the event, but the wound festered. It felt like she was asking me to erase a fundamental part of my history, my heart, for the sake of her picture-perfect day. The comments from Jack and Donna grew bolder, less veiled. At a tasting session, Jack leaned back, swirling an expensive Cabernet, and declared to the table at large, "Well, Lydia's certainly upgrading her life, isn't she? Trading the predictable for something a bit more rustic." His eyes flicked to me, a challenge masked as humor. Donna would sigh dramatically, patting Lydia's hand. "Love makes us do surprising things, darling. We all make sacrifices." The implication was crystal clear. Lydia was lowering herself, and I was the fortunate beneficiary of her charitable affection. Each barb landed, chipping away at my sense of self-worth. I bit my tongue, swallowed my pride, plastered on a smile. For Lydia, always for Lydia. I told myself it was pre-waiting stress, that their true colors would soften once the formalities were over. Once we were a solidified unit, I clung to the naive hope that marriage would create a buffer, that Lydia would naturally prioritize us over them. The rehearsal dinner proved how catastrophically wrong I was. Jack and Donna's offer to host the rehearsal dinner at the Gilded Fork initially felt like an olive branch. Perhaps, I thought foolishly, this extravagant gesture was their way of smoothing over the mounting tensions, a peace offering demonstrating their commitment to the union. They certainly marketed it as such. Donna couldn't pass up an opportunity to remind anyone within earshot. "We've poured our hearts into this dinner, Michael, spared no expense. It's going to be absolutely spectacular, the talk of the season." Jack would puff out his chest, adding, "Secured the private dining room at the hottest spot in town. Took some pulling, but we managed it. You're lucky we have the connections." Their generosity felt performative, less about celebrating us and more about showcasing their own influence and largesse. It was a gift wrapped in self-congratulation. As the date neared, their control tightened, and the passive aggression became overt. Trying to collaborate on the guest list felt like navigating a minefield. When I suggested adding a couple of my mom's close friends, who'd been like ants to me, Donna actually rolled her eyes. "Honestly, Michael, we have it handled. Don't stress your pretty little head over the details. Just show up, smile, and enjoy our hospitality." The condescension was breathtaking. Our event had become their production. My role was reduced to grateful audience member. The menu planning was another exercise in subtle humiliation. Donna waxed lyrical about the curated gastronomic experience they'd designed. "Our chef is crafting something truly exceptional," she purred. "Nothing like the simple fare you're probably used to, Michael." The back-home dig was her favorite, a constant, unsubtle reminder of my perceived place outside their sophisticated circle. I felt perpetually off balance, an uncultured intruder in their world of curated perfection. Even Lydia's behavior shifted noticeably in the weeks leading up to the dinner. Her default setting of siding with her parents intensified. Anytime I voiced a concern about the guest imbalance, the menu's complexity, the sheer scale of the event, she'd wave a dismissive hand. "Michael, stop overthinking everything. My parents are experts at this. They know what they're doing. Just relax and let them handle it." Her dismissal wasn't just about the dinner. It felt like a dismissal of me, my feelings, my right to have a say in my own wedding events. The united front I craved was crumbling, revealing Lydia firmly entrenched in her parents' camp. They treated me like a charity case she'd taken in, lucky to bask in their reflected glory. And Lydia, through her silence or her complicit laughter, endorsed it. 1 week before the rehearsal dinner, we were at Jack and Donna's imposing Tudor-style home, ostensibly finalizing seating arrangements. Donna presided over a sprawling binder, like a general deploying troops. Charts, fabric swatches, and floral samples covered the massive oak table. The air was thick with Donna's perfume and the scent of impending control, trying to inject a piece of us, of me, into the sterile perfection. I tentatively suggested swapping the elaborate, towering orchid centerpieces for simpler, elegant arrangements of white hydrangeas and greenery. Something classic, understated, reminiscent of the gardens Mom loved. Donna didn't even glance up from her meticulously color-coded chart. "Oh, Patricia," she sighed, the name dripping with faux nostalgia. She certainly had. Interesting taste, didn't she? Quaint, I suppose. But darling, she finally looked at Lydia, not me. "This is your day. Let's keep things modern and sophisticated, shall we? We want impact." The dismissal was casual, absolute. The subtle dig at Mom's taste, implying it was dated, unsophisticated, landed with a sickening thud in my gut. I froze, the air rushing from my lungs. My eyes snapped to Lydia. She was engrossed in her phone, scrolling through Instagram, a faint smile on her lips, as if she hadn't heard a thing. The utter lack of reaction, the absence of even a flicker of discomfort or defense, was a betrayal as sharp as Donna's words. Rage, hot and corrosive, surged through me. I wanted to slam my fist on the table, to demand respect, to scream that quaint taste had saved their gilded backsides. But the old habit, the ingrained desire to keep the peace, to not be the difficult one, clamped down. I swallowed the fury, forcing a stiff nod, my jaw clenched so tightly my teeth ached. That moment, that quiet complicity from Lydia, was the crack through which the dam would finally burst. I walked away hating myself for my silence, a bitter taste in my mouth that foreshadowed the bitterness to come. The day of the rehearsal dinner arrived, cloaked in a palpable, unspoken tension. Lydia and I drove to the restaurant in near silence, the air in the car thick with everything left unsaid. I tried to make light conversation, commenting on the weather, the city lights. Lydia remained glued to her phone, offering monosyllabic replies. When I asked, tentatively, excused about tonight, she sighed, a sound heavy with exasperation. It's just a dinner, Michael. Seriously, don't stress so much. Just show up, smile, eat the fancy food. It's not a coronation, just a dinner. Her words minimized the significance, yet amplified my sense of alienation. This event, meant to celebrate us, felt like just another obligation on her calendar, another performance directed by her parents. Pulling up to the Gilded Fork felt like entering a stage set for a play I hadn't rehearsed. Valets scurried. Jack stood sentinel at the entrance, shaking hands with the arriving guests with the practiced bonhomie of a politician, his voice booming welcomes. Inside, Donna flitted between staff like a hummingbird, issuing sharp whispered commands, adjusting a fork here, straightening a napkin there. The private dining room was a study in opulent excess, blindingly white tablecloths, glittering crystal chandeliers refracting light, towering floral arrangements that smelled more of money than nature. It screamed wealth, exclusivity, and it made me feel like an imposter in my own ill-fitting rented tuxedo. As guests filtered in, a cold dread settled in my stomach. Scanning the room, I counted familiar faces. My father, stoic but tense. My sister, Sarah, her expression already stormy. 2 close college friends, and a beloved aunt. That was it. 5 people. The rest of the room, is easily 40 guests, was a sea of Lydia's extended family, her parents' affluent friends, and business associates I barely recognized. It wasn't a rehearsal dinner. It was a networking gala, thinly disguised as a family event. Jack and Donna had hijacked it entirely. I pulled Lydia aside near the overflowing bar. "Lydia," I hissed, keeping my voice low but urgent. "Where is everyone? Where's Uncle Ben? Mom's friends, Doris and Carol? My crew from work?" She looked genuinely perplexed, then dismissive. "Michael, be realistic. Your family is tiny. My parents have a large circle. They had to invite people to fill the room and make it feel like a real event. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal." Her mantra, my family, my connections, my history, insignificant footnotes in the grand narrative of the Sinclair family. The message was clear. My side was an afterthought, barely worthy of inclusion. I turned away, the forced smile on my face feeling like a rictus grin. The dinner hadn't even started, and I already felt gutted. Jack and Donna weren't just hosting, they were staging a takeover. Dinner was a blur of overly complex courses, each accompanied by Donna's breathless descriptions of sourcing and technique, another implicit lesson in my culinary ignorance. The conversation at our table was stilted, dominated by Jack's booming pronouncements on market trends and Donna's gossip about people I didn't know. My father exchanged quiet words with Sarah. My friends looked increasingly uncomfortable. The air vibrated with unspoken tension. Then came the speeches. Jack commandeered the microphone stand like a general addressing his troops. "Ladies and gentlemen," he boomed, silencing the room. "Welcome. Tonight, we gather to celebrate the joyous union of 2 families, the joining of our beloved Lydia." He paused for dramatic effect, his chest swelling, and, of course, Michael. My name was an afterthought, delivered with a faint curl of the lip. A ripple of polite laughter echoed, but it felt sharp, pointed. He launched into a paean to Lydia, her brilliance, her ambition, her unwavering determination. Our Lydia, he declared, has always known her worth, always aimed for the stars. And now, his gaze swept over me, laden with condescension. She's found someone who will undoubtedly, keep her grounded. The smirk was unmistakable. More laughter, less polite this time. Sarah shot me a look of pure fury. My father's knuckles were white on the tablecloth. Jack continued, oblivious or uncaring, recounting tales of Lydia's childhood triumphs, emphasizing how crucial their guidance had been. We taught her to aim high, he stated, puffing out his chest. And while Michael might not be precisely what we envisioned, he let the sentence hang, the implication heavy in the air, punctuated by another smattering of uncomfortable chuckles. The message was clear. I was the compromise, the less than ideal choice Lydia had inexplicably settled for. Donna was next, gliding to the mic with the confidence of an Oscar winner. She spoke of her beautiful daughter, her joy at the impending wedding, her hopes for the future. Then, seamlessly, the knives came out. Lydia, she cooed, is perfection. She deserves nothing but the absolute best life has to offer. Her eyes flicked to me, and it's a good thing she's so patient and understanding, isn't it? She's already taught Michael so very much. I choked on a sip of water, the liquid burning my throat. Taught me what? How to endure their constant belittlement, how to shrink myself to fit their narrow expectations. The audacity stole my breath. Donna turned directly to me, her smile saccharine. And Michael, darling, we are truly thrilled to welcome you into our family. It would be wonderful to finally have someone around who doesn't mind getting their hands dirty, right? She laughed, a tinkling artificial sound, and several of her sycophantic relatives joined in. I looked desperately at Lydia. Surely now, but no, she was smiling, nodding along, as if her mother had just delivered a charming toast. My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird sensing the cage closing. Just when I thought the humiliation couldn't deepen, Jack reclaimed the mic, clinking his glass with a knife. One last thing, folks. Before we let you get back to this exquisite dessert, I feel we must take a moment to acknowledge someone who isn't here tonight, but who undoubtedly played a role in shaping the man Michael is today. His dear mother, Patricia. For one fleeting, foolish second, hope flared. Maybe decency would prevail. Maybe he'd offer a genuine word of thanks. He didn't. Patricia, Jack began, a false note of warmth in his voice, was certainly one of a kind. Had a real knack for inserting herself into situations, didn't she? Always had a very strong opinion on how things should be done. He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Donna, unable to resist, chimed in loudly from her seat. Oh, she definitely had strong opinions. Remember how she'd just insist on helping us, even when we didn't ask. So, persistent. They exchanged a look, a shared, cruel joke playing out. In public, the room went utterly still. The clinking of cutlery ceased. You could hear the ice melting in glasses. My blood turned to ice, then fire. Jack wasn't finished. He leaned into the mic conspiratorially. But in all seriousness, folks, Patricia was a generous woman. She helped us out quite a bit over the years. Sometimes, he paused, winking broadly at the audience, too much, if I'm being perfectly honest. Another forced chuckle escaped him. We'll be sure to keep her spirit alive at the wedding tomorrow. Though, he added, his tone dripping with faux concern, let's hope Michael hasn't inherited her enthusiasm for taking charge. We wouldn't want him meddling too much in things, would we? Keep it simple, son. He raised his glass, to Patricia. The toast was met with stunned silence, broken only by a few nervous coughs. The air crackled with appalled disbelief. My vision tunneled. The faces of Jack and Donna swam before me, their expressions smug, satisfied with their performance. They genuinely believed they'd been charming, witty, affectionate even. But when I tore my gaze from them, scanning the room, I saw the truth reflected in the wide eyes and frozen expressions of the guests. Shock, embarrassment, disgust. My father looked murderous. Sarah was trembling with rage. My friends stared at their plates, mortified. The worst part wasn't Jack and Donna's cruelty. It was Lydia. As Jack finally sat down to a smattering of confused, half-hearted applause, I turned to her, my eyes begging for some sign, some acknowledgement of the atrocity just committed. She met my gaze, rolled her eyes slightly, and with a light, dismissive laugh, said, "Oh, Daddy, stop. You're terrible, terrible." as if he'd told a slightly off-color joke, not publicly eviscerated the memory of the woman who'd saved their family. Her laughter, her casual dismissal, was the final, soul-crushing blow. They hadn't just mocked my mother. Lydia had endorsed it. The awkward clatter of resumed eating was the only sound in the suffocating silence that followed. I sat rigid, my fists clenched so tightly under the table that my nails dug bloody crescents into my palms. The roaring in my ears drowned out the scrape of forks. The room felt airless, the opulent surroundings now grotesque, a gilded cage trapping me in a nightmare. Rage, cold and precise, warred with a profound, gut-wrenching grief. They had spat on her grave in front of everyone, and Lydia had laughed. She leaned in then, her voice a low murmur barely audible over the pounding in my skull. "Are you okay?" It wasn't concern. It was the perfunctory check-in you'd give someone who stubbed a toe, devoid of any real understanding of the gaping wound they'd just inflicted. I couldn't speak, couldn't even look at her. I managed a stiff, jerky nod, my jaw locked, teeth grinding. The heat in my face felt volcanic. Then Donna appeared at my elbow, radiating faux sympathy. "Michael, darling," she purred, placing a hand lightly, possessively on my shoulder. I flinched as if burned. "I do hope you weren't offended. Jack and I, well, we just wanted to add a little levity, a bit of humor. You know how Patricia was. It was all in good fun, sweetheart. Truly good fun. Levity, sweetheart. The condescension, the sheer breathtaking audacity of her fake concern. Her attempt to gaslight me into believing I was misinterpreting their vicious mockery as affectionate ribbing. It was the spark thrown onto the tinderbox of my fury. Something fundamental, something that had held me back through years of subtle digs and outright insults, finally snapped. It wasn't a roar. It was a tectonic shift deep within. The carefully constructed dam of politeness, of enduring for Lydia's sake, shattered completely. My chair shrieked violently against the polished marble floor as I stood up. The sound was like a gunshot in the hushed room. Every single head swiveled towards me. Conversations died midst. Forks hovered in midair. "Are you serious right now?" My voice, though low, cut through the silence like a blade, vibrating with a fury I no longer tried to contain. Donna recoiled, her hand dropping from my shoulder, her eyes wide with genuine shock. Jack looked up from his dessert, his expression shifting from smug satisfaction to affronted irritation. Lydia gasped, "Michael, stop. Sit down." I ignored her. My gaze remained locked on Donna, then swept to Jack. "Let me get this perfectly straight," I said, my voice gaining volume, resonating in the stunned quiet. "You spend the entire evening taking cheap shot after cheap shot at my mother, the woman who saved your failing business, who bailed you out time and again when no one else would lift a finger, and now you stand there and have the gall to tell me it was just a joke. You think that's acceptable?" Jack pushed his chair back, adopting his familiar posture of dismissive authority. "Relax, Michael," he commanded, a smirk playing on his lips. "For God's sake, you're overreacting. It was a bit of fun. Lighten up. We were just sharing some fond memories." "Fond memories?" I shot back, the words laced with venom. He called her meddling. He called her persistent like it was a character flaw. You mocked her generosity, the generosity that kept your restaurant open, that put food on your table, that sent your son to college. How in God's name is that fond? How is that fun? My voice rose, echoing slightly in the room. The tension was a physical presence now, thick and suffocating. Guests shifted uncomfortably. My father was half out of his seat, his face a mask of protective fury. Sarah was glaring daggers at Donna. Donna attempted a brittle laugh, waving a dismissive hand. "Oh, Michael, don't be so sensitive. We were just reminiscing. Everyone knows how Patricia liked to take charge. It was part of her charm." Her tone was saccharine, dripping with false innocence. "Take charge," I echoed, incredulous. My voice boomed now, fueled by years of suppressed anger. "She didn't take charge, Donna. She saved you. She co-signed the loan when the bank laughed in your face. She paid for the industrial oven that broke down, paid outright. She funded your son Ryan's final semester of college when you couldn't. She spent countless hours untangling your bookkeeping messes, babysitting your grandchildren. And this is how you repay her, by turning her into the butt of your jokes at a dinner meant to celebrate your daughter marrying her son. Is this your gratitude?" Jack surged to his feet, his face flushed with anger, the veneer of civility finally cracking. "All right, that's enough," he barked, pointing a finger at me. "We didn't mean any harm, but if you're going to throw a childish tantrum over a bit of harmless teasing, then maybe," his voice dripped with contempt, "maybe you're not mature enough for marriage after all." The insult, the sheer condescension, was breathtaking. It laid bare his utter lack of respect for me, for my mother, for the sacrifices she'd made for his family. Lydia finally found her voice, tugging frantically at my sleeve. "Michael, please, can we just go outside? Please, let's talk about this privately." Her voice was high-pitched, desperate, but it rang hollow. I yanked my arm away, the movement sharp, final. "No, Lydia, we can't. Not until your parents understand the profound, disgusting disrespect they've shown. Not until you understand what you allowed to happen." Donna clutched her pearls dramatically. "Michael, this is supposed to be a happy occasion. Look what you're doing. You're ruining this beautiful evening for everyone." "I'm ruining it," I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You ruined it the moment you decided to trash my mother's memory in front of this entire room. And you, Lydia," I turned on her, my voice cracking with betrayal, "you just sat there. You laughed. You didn't lift a finger to stop them. Not one word." Lydia's face flushed crimson. "I didn't know they were going to say all that," she protested, her voice defensive, whiny. "Didn't know," I spat. "But you laughed, Lydia. You laughed at every single insult. You encouraged them with your silence." The whispers started then, a rising tide of murmurs washing through the room. The spectacle was complete. Jack stepped forward, puffing out his chest, trying to physically intimidate me. "All right, Michael, if you're so damn offended, maybe you should just leave," he snarled, jabbing a finger towards the ornate double doors at the far end of the room. The suggestion hung in the air. Leave, walk away from the humiliation, the betrayal, the gilded cage. For a heartbeat, I considered it. The thought of escaping the suffocating atmosphere, the judgmental stares, was intensely tempting. Just turn and walk out. Leave them to their poisoned celebration. But then my eyes found my father's. His gaze was steady, fierce, filled with a quiet pride. Sarah's eyes blazed with righteous anger, urging me on. My friends looked stunned but nodded almost imperceptibly. Walking out would be letting them win. It would be retreating. It would leave Jack and Donna's narrative unchallenged, the oversensitive fiancé who couldn't take a joke. It would leave my mother's memory undefended in that room. No. I straightened my shoulders, meeting Jack's glare head. "No," I stated, my voice firm, clear, carrying to every corner. "I'm not leaving. Not until you understand exactly what you've done." Jack opened his mouth, likely to bellow another command, but I cut him off, my voice ringing with conviction. "You stand there." I swept my hand to encompass them, and paint my mother as some overbearing busybody, some meddling nuisance. But without her meddling, Jack, you wouldn't have this restaurant. You wouldn't have these connections you love to flaunt. You wouldn't have a son with a college degree. She didn't do any of it for thanks, or for praise, or for a place in your spotlight. She did it because it was the right thing to do, because she saw people in need, and she helped. My voice dropped slightly, thick with emotion. "And now, you sit here, in the very place her generosity helped save, and you mock her. You reduce her life, her kindness, to a punchline. That isn't just disrespectful, it's disgusting, it's shameful." The silence that followed was absolute, profound. Even Jack looked momentarily stunned, his bluster deflated. Donna gaped, fish-like, no witty retort forthcoming. Lydia stood frozen, tears streaming down her face now, but they inspired no pity in me, only a colder fury. "It doesn't matter how you meant it," I continued, my voice lower but no less intense, cutting through the silence. "What matters is the poison you chose to spew. You don't get to rewrite who my mother was. You don't get to diminish her legacy because it doesn't fit your self-important narrative. She deserved better than this." I paused, letting my gaze sweep over the horrified, fascinated faces, and honestly, so do I. With that, I stepped back from the table. I grabbed my jacket from the back of my chair, the movement deliberate, final. "You want me to leave? Fine, but don't expect me to come back. Not tomorrow, not ever." My father was on his feet instantly, his chair scraping back. Sarah snatched her purse, shooting Donna a look of pure, undiluted hatred. My friends stood too, their expressions resolute. As I turned towards the exit, Lydia's voice choked with tears. followed me. Michael, wait, please. I didn't look back. I walked, head high, back straight, through the gauntlet of stunned silence, past the glittering chandeliers and the untouched deserts, out through the heavy doors into the cool night air. The sound of the door closing behind me felt like a seal. Outside, the city noise rushed in, a welcome cacophony after the tomb-like silence. I took a deep, shuddering breath. My dad's hand landed heavily on my shoulder. "Son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You did the right thing. Patricia would be so damn proud of you right now." Sarah threw her arms around me, whispering fiercely, "They're monsters, absolute monsters." I nodded, but pride wasn't what I felt. It was a maelstrom, white-hot rage at their cruelty, a deep, aching grief for my mother violated, and a profound sense of betrayal that Lydia, the woman I'd pledged my life to, had been complicit. In that moment, under the indifferent city lights, a brutal clarity washed over me. If she couldn't, or wouldn't, stand up for me or for the memory of the woman who'd shown her family such kindness, then she wasn't the woman I thought I was marrying. The foundation wasn't just cracked, it was dust. Part of me wanted to get in the car and drive, to put miles between me and the scene of the betrayal. The initial rush of righteous anger was giving way to a sickening churn of what-ifs and the crushing weight of finality. But as we stood there on the sidewalk, the valets casting curious glances, another realization crystallized. Walking away, while powerful, wasn't enough. If I simply disappeared, Jack and Donna would control the narrative. They'd paint me as unstable, overly sensitive, the man who couldn't take a joke and ruined Lydia's big moment. They'd erase their own venomous words and make me the villain. My mother's memory deserved more than that. I deserved more than that. This wasn't just about escaping, it was about reclaiming my voice, my truth, and ending this charade definitively. I took another deep breath, the cool air sharp in my lungs, and turned to my dad. "I need to go back in there." My voice was surprisingly steady. Sarah whirled on me. "What are you, insane? Why? You don't owe those people another second of your time. You said your piece. Just walk away." "I know I don't owe them anything," I said, meeting her furious gaze. "But this isn't finished. Not like this. I need to make it clear. To Lydia, to her parents, to everyone in that room. I need to end it for good." My dad searched my face. He saw the resolve, the cold fury tempered by purpose. He nodded once, a slow, heavy movement. "If that's what you need to do, son, we're right behind you." I shook my head. "No, this is something I have to do alone." Sarah looked like she wanted to argue, but a look from my dad silenced her. He understood the symbolic weight. Turning back towards the imposing restaurant doors felt like walking towards a firing squad. My stomach churned, a knot of dread and adrenaline tightening with each step, but my mind was clear. This wasn't about reigniting the argument. This was about delivering the verdict. This was closure, on my terms. Pushing the heavy door open felt like stepping back into a distorted reality. The low murmur that had tentatively resumed died instantly. Every head snapped towards me. Conversations froze mid-sentence. Eyes wide, with shock, curiosity, and morbid fascination tracked my progress. Lydia was still at the main table, her face pale, streaked with tears, her eyes huge and terrified. When she saw me, she shot to her feet. "Michael." Her voice was a hoarse whisper. What are you doing?" I ignored her. My focus was fixed on Jack and Donna, still seated at the head table. Jack's expression morphed from residual anger to bewildered outrage. Donna looked like she'd seen a ghost, her hand fluttering to her throat. I walked past Lydia, past the staring guests, straight to the front of the room, stopping near where the microphone stand still stood. I didn't need it. The silence was absolute. "Waiting. Excuse me, everyone," I said, my voice projecting clearly, cutting through the stunned quiet. It wasn't loud, but it carried an undeniable weight. The room seemed to hold its breath. "I have something I need to say." I glanced briefly at Lydia. She stood frozen, hands clasped white-knuckled in front of her, a silent plea in her eyes. I looked away, addressing the room. I know this isn't the time or place anyone expected for an announcement like this. I began, my voice calm, deliberate, contrasting sharply with the emotional storm inside. But after what's transpired here tonight, after the profound disrespect shown not just to me, but to the memory of my mother, Patricia, I see no reason to delay. I took a deliberate breath, the pause stretching, amplifying the tension. This wedding, I stated, the words clear, final, irrevocable, is off. The reaction was instantaneous, explosive. A collective gasp ripped through the room, followed by a wave of frantic whispers, the scraping of chairs as people turned to each other, shocked exclamations. "Oh my God, did he just... No way!" Lydia clapped a hand over her mouth, a strangled sob escaping. "Michael, no, you can't." Her voice was raw, desperate. I held up a hand, palm out, a gesture demanding silence. It took a moment, the whispers dying down to a horrified hush. Even the waitstaff stood frozen in the shadows, trays forgotten. "This isn't a decision made lightly," I continued, my gaze sweeping over the sea of stunned faces. "And it isn't just about tonight. It's about the fundamental lack of respect I have endured from Lydia's family since the beginning. It's about the contempt they've shown me, the condescension, the constant reminders that I'm somehow less than. It's about the way they have, repeatedly, and tonight most egregiously, disrespected and mocked the memory of my mother, a woman who showed them nothing but extraordinary kindness and generosity when they desperately needed it." My voice gained strength, fueled by the righteousness of my cause. "But most importantly, it's about the realization of what kind of family I would be marrying into. A family that values status over decency, that rewards loyalty with mockery, that believes kindness is a weakness to be exploited. I cannot, and I will not, spend the rest of my life being treated as an afterthought, as someone unworthy, or tied to people who would so callously desecrate the memory of someone as good as my mother." Jack finally found his voice, surging to his feet, his face purple with rage and humiliation. "You're making a colossal mistake, boy," he bellowed, his finger jabbing towards me. "A life-ruining mistake. You're throwing away a good woman, a good life, over nothing, over your own thin skin." I actually laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Nothing. You think publicly ridiculing the woman who saved your business, funded your son's education, is nothing. You think treating your daughter's fiancés like dirt beneath your expensive shoes is nothing." I shook my head, my gaze locking with his, unflinching. "No, Jack. The colossal mistake would be going through with this wedding tomorrow. The mistake would be binding myself to a family like yours, a family that doesn't respect me, doesn't deserve my mother's legacy, and certainly doesn't deserve me." Donna started crying. Great heaving sobs, whether from genuine distress or wounded pride, was impossible to tell. "Michael," she wailed, her voice trembling, "please, don't do this. Not like this. We can talk tomorrow, when everyone's calmed down." "No," I stated, the word final, absolute. "There will be no tomorrow for this. Not for us. This is done." I turned one last time to Lydia. Her face was a mask of devastation, tears streaming freely. She looked utterly lost, broken. "Michael," she choked out, her voice barely audible. "Please, ... Don single quotes, T ... I met her eyes, and for a fleeting second, I saw the ghost of the woman I'd loved. But it was buried under years of entitlement, parental influence, and her own fatal silence. The love was gone, replaced by a cold, hollow certainty. "I already have," I said, my voice flat, devoid of anger now, only finality. I turned and walked back towards the exit. The silence was profound, heavier than before, charged with the shockwaves of the bomb I'd just detonated. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor, the only sound in the vast, stunned room. I didn't look back. I pushed through the doors, and this time, stepping into the night felt like stepping into freedom. The band-aid wasn't just ripped off. The wound was cauterized. It was over. The next morning dawned grey, mirroring the emotional hangover that settled over me. Sleep had been impossible. My phone, silenced but not ignored, pulsed with notifications. Over 100 messages lit up the screen. The deluge had begun. Lydia's texts were a torrent of pleading, denial, and desperate bargaining. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please, please call me. We can fix this. I love you. Don't throw us away. My parents are devastated. They didn't mean it like that. Please, just talk to me." Jack's messages were predictably aggressive, laced with threats and wounded ego. "You humiliated us beyond belief. You'll regret this. Ungrateful little shit. After everything we did for you, you've broken Lydia's heart. Hope you're happy. Don't expect any help from us ever again. You're dead to us." Donna played the wounded matriarch, the victim, How could you do this to Lydia? On the eve of her wedding, you've ruined everything. The shame. Patricia would be appalled at your behavior. We opened our home and hearts to you. There were even a few bewildered messages from Lydia's aunts and cousins, ranging from confused, concern to outright hostility, clearly fed the Sinclair spin. I read them all, a grim satisfaction mixing with the residual anger and sadness. They confirmed everything. I didn't reply to any of them. Silence was my shield. By mid, the inevitable knock came. Lydia stood on my doorstep, a ghost of the vibrant woman I'd proposed to. She looked shattered, puffy, red-rimmed eyes, no makeup, hair hastily pulled back. She was still wearing the silk blouse from the rehearsal dinner, now wrinkled and stained with tears. The sight was jarring, but it didn't soften me. It only underscored the surreal nightmare. "Michael," she whispered, her voice raspy, tears already welling again. "Can we please, please talk?" She looked so small, so broken. I didn't invite her in. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, a barrier both physical and emotional. "What's left to talk about, Lydia? I said everything last night. I meant it." She flinched as if struck. "I know you're angry. God, you have every right to be, but it was a misunderstanding. A horrible, stupid misunderstanding. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I'll talk to my parents, make them apologize properly. We can postpone, not cancel. Please don't end it." Her words tumbled out, frantic, desperate. I shook my head slowly, my gaze steady on hers. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't fixable. This wasn't one night, Lydia. This was the culmination of years. Years of your parents treating me like I wasn't good enough. Years of you letting them, years of you dismissing my feelings, my family, my mother. I was scared." She blurted out, fresh tears spilling over. "Okay, I was scared of making it worse. Scared of upsetting them. Scared of causing a scene. Scared," I repeated, my voice low but intense. "Scared of what?" "Scared of defending the man you supposedly loved. Scared of telling your parents that mocking a dead woman who saved their asses was monstrous. What exactly were you so afraid of, Lydia? Losing their approval, their money?" The question hung in the air, brutal and unanswered. She just stood there, crying, unable to articulate a defense because there wasn't one. Her eyes widened with a final, desperate hope. She took a step closer, her hand reaching out tentatively. "Please, Michael," she begged, her voice a raw whisper. "Don't do this. We love each other. We can make it work. I'll change. I'll stand up to them. Please, don't throw away 6 years." I looked at her, truly looked at her. The woman I'd built dreams with. The woman who had laughed while her parents eviscerated my mother's memory. The disconnect was absolute. "It's not just about your parents, Lydia," I said, my voice weary but resolute. "Last night showed me who you are. When it mattered most, you chose them. You chose silence. You chose complicity. I saw it. I can't unsee it. I deserve better than that. I deserve respect. I deserve loyalty. I deserve someone who would defend the people I love, especially when they're not here to defend themselves." I paused, letting the words sink in. "This is over." The finality hit her like a physical blow. Her face crumpled completely, the desperate hope extinguished, replaced by a dawning horror of irrevocable loss. She stared at me, her mouth working soundlessly. Then a low, guttural sob escaped her. She turned and fled down the hallway, the sound of her crying echoing behind her. I closed the door softly, the click of the lock a final punctuation mark. Weeks passed. The initial storm of messages dwindled to a trickle, then ceased as I blocked numbers and deleted pleas and threats alike. I focused on work, on reconnecting with friends who offered genuine support, on spending time with my dad and Sarah. The raw pain began to scab over, replaced by a weary sense of relief and a hard-won peace. The burden of the wedding, the constant tension with the Sinclairs was gone. One quiet Saturday afternoon, seeking a connection to something solid, something good, I pulled out my mum's old keepsake box. It was a simple wooden chest, worn smooth with age and handling, containing tangible pieces of her essence. Her favorite pearl necklace, a pair of sapphire earrings my dad gave her for their 25th anniversary, a collection of handwritten recipes, in her looping script, a pressed flower from my high school graduation bouquet, and the piece de resistance, a small, delicate silver locket. This wasn't just jewelry. It was a sacred artifact, an heirloom passed down through 4 generations of women in my family. From my great-grandmother to my grandmother, then to Mum. Inside the worn silver casing were tiny sepia-toned photos of my grandmother and great-grandmother. Before she passed, weakened but determined, Mum had pressed it into my hand. "This belongs with you now, Michael," she'd whispered, her voice frail but clear. "Keep it safe. One day, when you find the right person, the one who truly honors family, who understands love and loyalty, you'll know when it's time to pass it on." It was more than an object. It was a covenant, a symbol of enduring love and legacy. I kept it tucked safely in the box, wrapped in velvet, untouched since her death. That day, when I opened the box, the velvet pouch felt strangely light. My heart stuttered. I carefully unfolded the velvet. The locket was gone. Panic, cold and sharp, sliced through me. I tore the box apart, searching every compartment, shaking out the recipes, checking under the lining. Nothing. I checked the dresser drawer, the shelf, the floor. Emptiness. A sickening realization dawned. The only person outside my immediate family who'd been in my apartment recently was Lydia. She'd come over a few days after the rehearsal dinner debacle, ostensibly to return the engagement ring, a cold, awkward exchange. She'd asked to use the bathroom before leaving. I'd thought nothing of it, just pointed her down the hall. The keepsake box sat on my dresser, in my bedroom, visible from the hallway. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling with rage. "Did you take the locket from my mom's keepsake box?" I texted. My message blunt, accusatory. Minutes crawled by. Then her reply. "What are you talking about?" The evasion ignited my fury. "You know exactly what I mean. The silver locket, the heirloom, it's gone. You're the only one who's been in here. Did you take it?" Another agonizing pause. "Then, I borrowed it. I just wanted to keep a piece of her with me. I thought it would help me feel closer to you." Borrowed. The word was a slap. Taken without permission, without a word. The sheer entitlement, the violation, took my breath away. I called her immediately. She answered on the first ring, her voice defensive. "Michael, it's not a big deal," she insisted before I could speak. "I was going to give it back. I just... I needed something. After everything... Double quotes, not a big deal." I exploded, my voice shaking. "Lydia, that locket has been in my family for over 100 years. It's not a fucking trinket you can just borrow because you're feeling nostalgic. It's my mother's. It's my grandmother's. How could you possibly think that was okay? I just wanted to feel connected to you," she cried, her voice breaking, trying to twist the theft into a tragic romance. "I didn't think you'd even notice it was gone." I was heartbroken. Of course I'd noticed. I shouted, disbelief warring with rage. "It's irreplaceable. And the fact that you didn't ask, that you just took it, makes it 1,000 times worse." "Where is it right now?" Silence. Then, a small, defeated whisper. It's at my parents' house. I didn't want to lose it or damage it, so I left it in my jewelry box there, for safekeeping. Safekeeping at Jack and Donna's." The final insult. The people who had mocked her, now safeguarding her most precious legacy. It was perverse. "You stole something priceless," I hissed, my voice low and dangerous. "Something that means more to me than you can possibly comprehend. And you left it at your parents' house. Are you out of your mind?" "I'm sorry... Double quotes, she whispered, the tears audible now. "Sorry doesn't cut it," I stated, ice cold. "I'm coming to get it, now." An hour later, fueled by white-hot fury, I pulled up to the imposing Sinclair mansion. The manicured lawn, the gleaming windows, it all felt tainted now. I marched to the front door and knocked, the sound sharp and demanding. Donna opened it, her face initially arranged in her usual hostess smile, which instantly vanished when she saw me. "Michael," she asked, her voice wary, tinged with hostility. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here for my mother's locket," I stated flatly, not bothering with pleasantries. "Lydia has it. She admitted she took it. She says it's here." Donna's eyes narrowed, her lips pursed. "The locket? What nonsense is this now?" "Lydia took a locket. Why on earth would she?" "Donna," I cut her off, my voice leaving no room for argument. "Just get it now, or I call the police and report it stolen." The threat hung in the air. Her eyes widened slightly, then hardened. She stepped aside with ill grace, muttering under her breath. I waited in the cavernous foyer. the opulence feeling grotesque. The air smelled of lemon polish and hypocrisy. Minutes later, Lydia appeared at the top of the curved staircase. She looked even worse than before, her face ravaged by tears, clutching the small silver locket in her hand like a talisman. She descended slowly, each step heavy with defeat. "Here," she said softly, holding it out when she reached the bottom. Her hand trembled. I snatched it from her fingers, the cool metal a shock against my skin. I immediately inspected it, the familiar scrollwork, the tiny hinge, the clasp. I carefully opened it. The tiny faded photos of my grandmother and great-grandmother gazed serenely back, relief warred with residual fury. It was intact. I closed it and shoved it deep into my pocket, a protective gesture. As I turned to leave, Lydia's voice, thick with tears, stopped me. "Michael, wait, please. I didn't mean to. I just wanted—" I spun around, cutting her off. "Save it, Lydia. Just save it." My voice was cold, exhausted. "You lied. You stole from me, from my mother. Like what you and your family had already done wasn't enough." The words landed like stones. Her face, crumpled, fresh sobs racking her shoulders. I didn't wait for another word. I walked out of their mansion, the heavy door closing behind me with a satisfyingly final thud. The locket was a solid, reassuring weight in my pocket. Holding it, feeling its familiar shape, was like reclaiming a piece of my soul, a piece of my mother, stolen by the very people she'd helped. In the days and weeks that followed, I finalized the severance. Lydia's number was blocked. Her emails were deleted unread. Any attempt at contact through mutual friends was shut down firmly. The locket was returned to its velvet pouch, safely nestled within the keepsake box, now stored securely away. It would wait for its true recipient, someone who understood its worth beyond silver and old photos. Calling off the wedding had been an earthquake, a public, painful rending. Discovering the theft of the locket was the aftershock, a brutal reminder of the depths of their entitlement and disrespect. It was exhausting, infuriating, and profoundly sad, but it was also necessary. It was the final, undeniable proof that I'd made the right choice. The relief wasn't just the absence of conflict, it was the presence of self-respect. I had stood at the precipice of a life bound to people who valued neither me nor the memory of the woman who shaped me. I had looked into the abyss of their cruelty and their daughter's complicity, and I had walked away. More than that, I had fought back. I had defended my mother's honor in that gilded den of vipers. I had reclaimed what was stolen. The path ahead wasn't paved with gold, but it was mine. It was free of condescension, free of backhanded compliments, free of the constant erosion of my worth. The quiet that settled over my life wasn't emptiness, it was peace. Hard-won, scarred, but genuine. For the first time since my mother's passing, and certainly since the engagement, I breathed freely. I had honored her legacy not by enduring disrespect, but by demanding the respect she deserved, and that I deserved too. The storm had passed. The sun, finally, felt warm on my face.